Welcome back to my channel or my Instagram. Today we have Holly, and I'm going to be asking her a few questions around like female hormones and nutrition and like hypothalamic amenorrhea and that kind of thing. So Holly, is there any chance you could just give us like a proper intro, if that's all right?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me, because it's absolutely lovely to be here. So my name is Holly, and I'm a registered nutritionist specialising in women's health, hormones and stress-related conditions. So I work with busy, active and high-performing women who are feeling pretty depleted by their lives. I'm sure you can identify with that. To regain their health and energy so that they can really get back to doing what they do best without burning out. I also partner with organisations to improve resilience and performance in the workplace. So that's kind of like the other arm of my business at the moment. And I guess when it comes to HA, I think that, HA really could be considered as like the ultimate stress condition for young premenopausal women, and I'm interested to hear what you think about that. But for that reason, I think that's it's a special interest of mine, both in research and in clinic work as well.
And how did you get into your job?
Yeah, so I think I've always been interested in nutrition and nutritional therapy, but I think I founded my business very much on my own experience. Okay. So the business was born out of my own experience of hypothalamic amenorrhea and stress and burnout and that. So I don't know if you want me to jump into my story.
Yeah, please. That's my next one. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit? You don't have to go into huge detail if you don't want to, but yeah, just a quick summary of your journey, because I think it's so interesting that we're often told to go to professionals and seek professional advice, but I often found I came up against so many barriers of professionals. Well, for me personally, my doctor had no clue about it whatsoever. It was a come back in a couple of months. And it's actually so heartwarming when you meet someone that has gone through, as a professional that has gone through it, because I feel like you understand people so much more than because of it's all been your experience, rather than going, okay, well, this is the science, this is what you need to do. It's like you completely, you get it a little bit more. So yeah, I'd love to hear you. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Well,
and also I think it's nice for other people that will watch this to be like, oh, so even the professionals can get it too.
Oh, totally. Totally. I mean, fitness professionals, nutritionists, yeah, for sure. So essentially, so I lost my period in my 20s for 2 years, and it doesn't sound like that long. I mean, I know a lot of women go for years and years without their periods, but this was following 9 years on the pill. So I really don't know what was going on during that time either. And that was a result of an incredibly active, stressed and on-the-go lifestyle. So I know a lot of women listening to this will probably be able to identify with what I just said. So I've been really active since my late teens, ever since my uni years, when I was a really high performing student, and I fell in love with running as my kind of endorphin delivering tonic, if you like. And I used to run, I don't know if you know Edinburgh, but that's where I went to uni, and I'd get up and I'd run around Arthur Seat, which is this mini mountain. It's a big hill. Oh, okay. But I would get up and I'd run around there before breakfast, and I used to love that kind of freedom and that sense of purpose and achievement I got from doing that before the day had even begun. And needless to say, I began to rely on it, and I turned into a bit of a fit fanatic. I also struggled with kind of moderate hyperactivity. I think I always have done. I fall close to the ADHD spectrum, though I've never been fully diagnosed. And I also have a genetic abnormality, which I now know about. Obviously, I didn't know back at the time. So it's an abnormality in an enzyme that helps me break down things like adrenaline and dopamine. Okay. So my body, I feel stress quite a lot. And I think that, I'm sure a lot of women and men as well, who would have these genetic tests, you might find.
How did you find that out?
I did so during my training as a nutritional therapist. When we got to the genetics part of I think it was in year 2, I was really interested. A lot of us were, to find out. So, I did a lot of self-testing. So, that's why. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's all making sense to me now. And it's not the answer for your personality, but it puts all the little pieces of your jigsaw puzzle together.
I think it's the same with like self-development, that kind of thing. It's never the answer, and it never will give you the full answer, but it does help to be like, oh, okay.
It really, really does. And, so that kind of fit fanaticism that I had, that became part of my identity, really. And I know, I think you're a PT, and having been that person, it becomes your identity, and you're like, well, this is who I am now. And that's, coupled with an immense interest in health, which I've really always had. At plant-based nutrition especially, I grew up on a tree nursery where, like, surrounded by fruit trees.
Wow.
Always had this interest in kind of plant nutrition, and that led me to underfuel my body chronically for a really, really long period of time. I just wasn't getting the energy that I needed to function, and consequently my brain chemistry, my energy levels, my period, my emotional health, was lost to me for a long time, not intentionally, but it was difficult. There were some dark times in my 20s, I tell you. It was really, really tricky. So then I've got kind of, I had a series of quite stressful jobs as well. I worked in both the public sector and the private sector, and some really quite interesting jobs that none of them satisfied me, and none of them gave me a true sense of purpose. So consequently, I put a lot of energy again back into my fitness and my studying, because around this time I was deciding to forget everything and just do what I wanted to do. I reached a breaking point in my 20s. I was completely drained. I was run down. It took me several visits to a gynecologist and some counselling psychology to deal with some family issues I'd never dealt with, alongside some personal emotions about myself and why I was constantly pushing myself to succeed, to say, enough was enough. And so I decided to retrain, first as a yoga teacher, and then as a nutritional therapist. And I don't teach yoga anymore. I think for me that was just fueling another need to be moving all the time. But certainly working with, doing the training in nutritional therapy for me was essential to doing fight, almost kind of breaking the cycle for myself, so that I could then help others.
And I think there's something that you said about having a stressful job, and I know you were very much moving into the fitness, like you were very much moving your body as well. But you finding that actually people are losing their periods when they're not obsessed with fitness, and actually they are eating what society might class as normal. Are you seeing that some of your clients are actually, because of the stress that they're under in terms of like their job and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a talk on this recently, actually. We do put people in the HA camp as being athletes. We talk about the female athlete triad, or personal trainers. We talk about people with eating disorders. We talk about people who are underweight, or if anything, not overweight. But the reality of it is HA can affect anyone, and it affects every single body type. And as I was describing, with some of the genetic, there was one genetic element with me, which is kind of just one part of it. But there are people that will feel stress acutely for whatever reason, and it's all hypothalamic amenorrhea is all about communication between the hypothalamus and the rest of the body, and that can be disturbed by all sorts of things. And it is primarily low energy availability, but there are other things too. But absolutely, when it comes to women and fueling, and we're all of us you can be under fueling, when you're overweight. You can be under fueling when you're overweight.
I very much found when I first started it, so I, like yourself, actually only had HA for 2.5 years. I'm still working on getting a regular cycle. When I first started researching into it, I want to say it was only about 6 months after I stopped taking the pill. So I would say like 6 months into HA, I feel like, because I'd stopped taking the pill, and like yourself, I have no idea what my cycle would have been like while I was on the pill. But I found that every research that I came across was only ever targeted at athletes. So I was like, well, I'm not an athlete, so that's nothing to do with me. And then it would be like, or to people with eating disorders. And even though now looking back, I realized I had disordered eating, I didn't I didn't fit into the whole eating disorder camp. So I was like, that's nothing to do with me either. So where am I? But going off that, in terms of, I'm just hanging on to the thing you said about most people do have disordered eating. What do you find that women mostly have in terms of like disordered eating? Do you see a trend in female disordered eating? So is there anything that it's very typical that you might see in clinic that people could be like, oh, actually, yeah, I think like that?
I would say every single person on the planet is, let's is an emotional eater. We all associate food with love and reward and sickness. If someone's unwell, you take them grapes. If someone is not feeling great, you take them a chocolate bar. You know, like food is emotional for us, and a lot of us have, you know, a lot of emotions invested in the way that we eat. So it's very natural for someone to firstly to develop a disordered eating pattern anyway. I think with the type of clients that I see, it really does range, but almost every client I see will have some form of view or opinion of certain types of food as being good or bad. And I think we're conditioned to feel that way. You know, we're conditioned to see certain types of food as good for us, whereas rather than every type of food as having a purpose. Trying to answer your question is really difficult. I would say the trend is definitely a restriction of certain types of foods. And
feeling good and bad sort of thing.
Yeah, just that kind of that mindset of good or bad, you know, and rather than balance and everything in moderation. And binge eating certainly is something that I find we all sort of, again, that's the emotional eating side of us that I think a lot of us
it's that it's my birthday, so I'm gonna have a blowout and I'll start again Monday sort of thing.
Yeah, yo-yo dieting, yeah, big one, really big one for weight loss clients too. And we, you know, we're people with HA, again, you don't think that's not the profile that we're talking about here, but it's really, really difficult for people that get stuck in that mindset and that mentality of constantly starting again on Monday. And it's another form of restriction, and it's another form of you know, calorie deficit that just leads to overeating, and it's just a bit of a difficult to get out of it.
So let's talk about how important it really is. The No Period Now What book obviously talks about 2,500 calories. I still am very much on the fence with that. I think everyone is so different that it's quite difficult to just ask someone, and if you've been restricting for so long, it's very difficult to ask someone to jump up to that. But let's talk about, we're told so much about make sure you're eating enough, make sure you're eating enough carbs, and eat every 2 to 3 hours if you're suffering from HA. But women in general, how important is it to be eating the right amount of food and the right, I guess, profiles of food? How important really is it for our health?
It is so important. You know, eating enough is super important for women. We've been conditioned not to feed ourselves properly, and that dates back to Victorian times, you know, where women used to hide in their rooms and eat because it was not proper for a woman to be seen to have an appetite in front of men.
Wow.
You know? So this is what I mean. It's so ingrained in our history. Our period is a burden in one sense, but it's also a privilege, you know, in the form of our menstrual cycle. And our periods are also a key part of our health, right? So it's not just about making babies, but when we're not eating enough, not only do we feel low in energy and stressed and moody and hungry, but we lose the health of our cycle, whether or not that's having raging PMS or missing our periods. And that has a big consequence for our health. You know, when our hormones are out of whack, it can cause all sorts of disturbances to our emotional health, our physical health, and our long-term health as well, especially, you know, the losing the cycles. You know, we've got to be realistic and thinking about the long-term implications of that. And that's not me sitting here trying to scare anyone. It's, I think, knowledge is power, and being awareness is really important for women, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So how much, I'm going to contradict myself here because I've just said it's so different for everyone, but how much should we be eating? Like, what should we be eating?
Yeah, so, I mean,
there's so much out there, and there's so many diets, and it's probably, I'm sure I'm speaking for many, but for me, the reason why I probably fell down that rabbit hole of too like restrictive and foods like never really knowing, it was because I never knew what to eat. So how much should women be really eating? How do we measure it? And how should our like nutrition look like really?
As a nutritional therapist, it's all about the individualized approach. So it's really difficult without understanding the health history and kind of what's going on with someone to kind of give an exact, this is what we should all be eating, because it's totally different. We're all biochemically different. But I mean, essentially, you know, firstly, we should be eating enough food. Let's just start there. We should be eating enough calories. Often that's quite difficult to do.
How do we do that? If we've been told, think like we've been so programmed to underfuel. Do women even know how much we should be eating now? Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like we're told constantly to eat less, move more. We're, like you said about the Victorian one, like how do we even know now? How do we even know?
Yeah, I think a good kind of point of reference is to understand your symptoms. You know, if you are feeling if you've got brain fog, if you're feeling low on energy, you're struggling to get up in the morning, you're feeling really stressed, you're probably not eating enough. Okay. So it's about experimenting a little bit, you know, and just monitoring your symptoms. I doubt that what the government's recommendation is 2,000 calories for a woman. I doubt that most women are modern day women. It's enough. Certainly it isn't enough for my clients. My clients are usually very busy or very active. So I think having again, I can't give you a number. It's very difficult to do that. What should we be eating? We should be eating a balance of all three macronutrients. So carbohydrates, proteins and fats. We need all three. And often we find one is demonized a little bit over the other, usually carbohydrates, but also fats as well.
And trophied, right?
Yeah, exactly. So getting all three in and not feeling guilty about that, or like that is just normal eating.
Why are carbs so important? Sorry to interrupt. Why are carbs so important for the menstrual cycle?
Well, essentially, carbohydrates are important for every single cell in the body that they are converted most efficiently into energy. Okay. They're recognized by when we eat carbohydrates, they're broken down into glucose, and our hypothalamus senses the glucose. It understands, it reads that in the bloodstream, so it knows that, you know, we've got enough energy available. So certainly for somebody with HA, it sends this lovely, you know, abundant signal to the body that we're safe to reproduce. So that's one of the reasons. It actually takes quite a lot of energy to ovulate. You know, the second half of our cycle, we're burning between 89 and 279 additional calories per day. It does range a lot between the individual, but if you think about why your appetite goes up so much towards your period, is actually your metabolism is higher. So we need to account for that sort of level of difference, and we've never been taught to do that, right? So no wonder women's appetites can become a little bit erratic.
And we're so, I guess, we class it so demonizing of, oh, I just want the ice cream and the chocolate. It's probably, am I right in thinking it's probably our body, it's like just telling you need more calories, and we know that our brains will know that sugar is like a quite quick one, so we'll crave the sugary foods, right? Have I got that right?
You've got that spot on. Yeah, spot on. Because as soon as we eat sugar, you know, it releases dopamine in the brain. It also, you know, it's an almost immediate reward type effect. So the body feels immediately satiated, and it's a survival mechanism. You know, sugar and fat laden foods, they're hugely energy available, and they're also very calorie dense. They're very you know, the body, I'm losing my words here, but the body sees those as being incredibly, no,
I feel you. So it's like the sugar, the body sees the sugar as being like, okay, it's always going to optimize, it's always going to want energy, and sugar is the fastest way of getting that energy. So if we crave sugar and chocolate and stuff, it's just our body's way of saying to us, we need fast energy, quick. Yeah. So is there a way that, actually, I'll come on to that in a little while. Can we talk about the fats? Why that's so important around for females?
So we need fats to actually produce our hormones. So a lot of our hormones, including our estrogen and our progesterone, those are our two main female hormones, and our steroid hormones as well, which are our stress hormones, are made from steroids, which is essentially it's a fat molecule, or cholesterol is the basis of that. So we need our hormones. A lot of our hormones are based on fat, right? So fat is very, very important. Our brain is predominantly fat tissue. You know, our nerve cells are coated with a little layer of fat. We store a little bit more fat, right? Women store a little bit more fat naturally. It's there for protection. It secretes hormones for us. It does all sorts of things. And you know, we're not men. We're not many men. Our whole body composition is designed a little bit differently. So that fat is there. It has numerous kind of physiological functions for us, especially as women. And when we're trained into these low fat diets, that it's the body doesn't respond very well to that. Every single membrane in the body is coated with fat, so fat is essential for cellular communication and energy release. So it's a phenomenal amount of reasons why women might need fat.
Yeah, so are you finding that a lot of women in clients might have a low fat or a low carb diet, but also potentially just want to be really, really, really lean and small? And what I'm often seeing that, like, I know we've discussed that HA doesn't discriminate who it goes towards, but a lot of, for me personally, I just wanted to be as lean as possible, and I patted myself on the back every time I went down a dress size. And I now know that the way I look at it is, when I was 14 in school, I was a size 10, and I now argue, well, I've now gone through puberty, so at what point would it make sense for me to be a size 6 at 10 years later? So like, do you notice women like that in clinic, and how do we navigate that whole like weight gain and scariness and asking someone to potentially eat more, because obviously for so long we're told to eat less? How do you kind of navigate that?
A lot of mindset support, a lot of resources I use with clients. Sometimes it's just baby steps, and it's talking through the fears. Sometimes I find it helpful just to say, okay, well, let's not, it's never about me telling anyone what to do, because that is not, it's never going to be sustainable for that person. That person's got to believe in their heart this is what they want. So understanding, and often I'm working with women at the opposite end. They're wanting their period back, so they've got that motivation to change this mindset, and they want to change. But I'm very rarely working with somebody that wants to lose, like, unless it's somebody who is overweight that wants to drop the weight, somebody with a kind of pathological view around their body, because for me, ethically, it's not right for me to support that person in weight loss if it's not healthy for them. So I will probably say I'm probably not the right person for you. But it is. I completely forgot where we're going.
You've answered it. You said that you just offer a lot of mindset support, like with clients that are struggling with that whole concept of weight gain. And I think from my experience, and I don't know if you would have had the same, that even though I was so scared of the weight gain, and I was never actually clinically, like from the doctor, I was never underweight because my BMI was amazing, which we kind of know is very outdated now, especially like with my muscle mass that I had compared to, so that was what was causing my BMI to come up as okay. But if you kind of took that away, I was tiny, and the weight gain was really, really scary. But it's only once you've restored that it's like, because you're fueling yourself, like you say, it's my hormones have regulated, my energy has come back, that actually I'm no longer so depleted that I'm focusing solely on one thing. My mind's elsewhere now. So like, my mind's like, I'm working more than I ever have, and I'm not burning out, and I'm sensitive. I can't do high intensity workouts or anything like that, but I find I can do more. And my body is, I'd be lying if I said I don't often think about it, and I'd be lying if I said I don't often slip back into that mindset. But it's so much more, and the weight gain gives you that mindset, or helps with that mindset.
100%. And you know what, I remember teenage years, I was quite a bubbly person. I was very like, you'd be able to hear my laugh like a mile away, and it was just that was one of the things I missed. I missed that bubbly part of that energy I used to have. And I think that's the you're right, what you're doing is you're shifting what your
like the purpose is, right? Like when we got that, when we become that fit one, that's us. And I think, and then when we like switch our purpose slightly else, it's like, oh, okay, this is the real me. Yeah, I forgot about that side of me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for a lot of women that it's tied up in, you know, what their partners think of them. I think it's almost easier when you don't have a partner, but you know, if you've got a good relationship with your partner and you're open enough to, you can talk to them about, look, I feel like I need to change. Hands down, 100% of the time, in my experience, the boyfriend or the husband is super happy that the girl has put on weight. They are really happy. And I think sharing that story with other women is a powerful one, because, you know, most of the time we as women, we're so worried about what other people think. How often are we answering our own, you know, are we just trying to make ourselves happy?
Yeah, instead of keeping the spotlight on everyone else, what about we turn it on us, and actually what are we thinking about ourselves, rather than what are we worried about of other people?
We're pathological people pleasers as women. Yeah.
So someone with HA then, is there any basic nutrition things that we can do, so like to get a healthy cycle? Is there something to get that healthy cycle, to stabilize our hormones? Is there anything that we can actually start to do without having a personal focus?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the key things is your morning routine. Getting that right is probably a really, really good place to start. When we wake up in the morning, our hypothalamus does a little scan of the body. It's aligned with our cortisol awakening response. So when you wake up, you know, cortisol rises and it signals the day has begun, and we get that alert feeling, or we should do. A lot of us, we don't get that. We feel a bit groggy, but the hypothalamus does this little scan of the body to check everything is safe. So actually what we do in the first hour when we wake up is really important, and it can be a really powerful thing for a woman with HA to do, is to slow it down, do something that's really restorative. It could just be getting up and having a meal with no phone, you know, just a small meal, and just chewing it really thoroughly, breathing deeply, and you know, and just being open to what the day is going to bring for you, without this kind of stress of I need to achieve, I need to do that, I need to do, you know. So that is very, very powerful thing.
Same guilty.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean,
I've got back into the habit of having coffee as soon as I wake up and I open my laptop.
Don't do that.
No, that's like if I don't get my period this month, I'll be like, damn, I shouldn't have opened the laptop.
Yeah. That is true. And even when you get your period back and you want to go back to your morning exercise, if that's you, because that's me, you know, just having a little bit of fueling around that, you know, even if it's just a little half a banana or something. And I think if you've got HA, I would avoid fasted morning exercise, but you know, I think it's something to be aware of. And then just generally checking in with how much you're eating in total. You know, you want to make sure that you are you're not going to bed thinking about food. That's a big one. If you're going to bed thinking about food, that can be chronic underfueling. You know, we become pre-programmed to think that way. But you know, you want to feel satisfied by your meals. You know, so allowing yourself to indulge should be a priority for you, without overshooting it. But you can. Why not? You know, why not? Don't taking any restrictions off the table. A little bit of everything is important. Try a new food every week, or even every day. You know, variety is really important. And that way as well, if you're constantly switching things up, you're without needing to supplement, you're going to be making sure you're getting a whole range of micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, and we need a lot of those to have a healthy cycle as well. There are certain micronutrients that we need to have in good levels, otherwise it makes that whole process of certainly of HA recovery very difficult.
Yeah, I found that I actually started getting Riverford boxes, veg boxes, just to help keep me diverse. So I actually started it as a lockdown, as it was like a little treat that I was going to have every Friday when they dropped it off. And I just loved how much it forced me to cook, but also how much it forced me to cook meals that I didn't necessarily know the calories of. So for me, I was a cereal tracker, and I'm very, very clued up of how many calories are in each food. And the Riverford boxes meant it was like, okay, well, I need to eat all of this veg, potatoes and stuff like that. And it enabled me to really explore like some of the veg I was getting, and I was like, Christ, I've never seen you before. I was even having to I googled like spiky thing that looks like a lettuce, and it was And it came up something, I can't remember, it was a type of a broccoli. It was nice.
I don't know.
And it really like forced me to have to like cook. I also went vegan, which I was actually nervous about making that change, because I was like, okay, hang on, I had to really sit with myself and be like, is this another form of restriction, or are you good with this? And it's actually been life-changing in the sense of my go-to for years was chicken salad, whereas now I like, obviously I wouldn't do that now because I'm fueling myself a lot better, but for me personally, and I wouldn't encourage this with anyone until like they're happy with it in their cells, and they've seen like they've worked with professionals and stuff. But for me personally, it enabled me to really try so many different foods and different meals. Try and have a low carb, so my thing was low carb, but try have a low carb vegan diet. It's near enough impossible.
Yeah, it's a good training for you. Yeah, for sure.
It really, for me, personally, it really helped. I've just got a couple more questions, if that's all right. They're actually extra ones that I didn't send to you before. But do we have any symptoms that you find of people? I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but chronic symptoms of someone that's under fueling.
Yeah. Okay. So low energy, absolute exhaustion is primary, and with that, brain fog is a big one. Feeling stressed, overly stressed. When we're under fueling, our blood sugar is constantly dropping, and that causes cortisol to rise, which means we feel more wired all of the time, which means we may also struggle to sleep as well. Sleep is a big one. So waking up in the night, struggle to get to sleep. That's a big one. Then everything from brittle hair, dry hair, brittle nails, low sex drive, cravings, low moods, disturbed moods, feeling achy, and sore, injury prone, digestive issues. I mean, it's a big one in clinic. IBS issues are very common in women with HA. Not everyone for sure, but it's one of the things I see a lot. Thyroid issues as well, but just not feeling your bubbly self. You also frequent colds and things, infections.
Yeah, so illnesses as well.
Yeah, all sorts of things. Yeah, I mean the list is endless.
And then what on the flip side, someone that is fueling themselves, and you might have worked with them for a little bit longer, so what are the symptoms now? How do their lives change, apart from potentially getting their period back?
Yeah, so they may get their period. Well, they do get their period back. They may get their period back.
I meant more so because I appreciate that sometimes getting your period back might take like a fair few months. But is there any like real like first couple of weeks sort of things?
Yeah. Energy is the big one. People just cannot believe how much energy they have. They are just, I can't believe, I'm getting up, and this positivity. They have increased motivation. They may feel more sexy. That can take probably between 4 and 5 weeks. But the energy is probably something that happens really quite quickly. It can turn around. Just that more positivity around life, and with that, with that energy and that positivity, it makes the whole of the process so much easier. Because that can be it can be stalemate for people. It can be stalemate when you're in that state, for sure.
100%. I always found that when I was in that real dieting stage, it was like, I'll try this, and I didn't have the energy to keep it going. So then do you know what I mean? It was that constant slog of like, okay, I'll try and lose a little bit more weight. So do you really see people's lives completely change?
Yeah, it is lovely. It's amazing. It's a powerful thing, and it's wonderful. I say this, I know it sounds really cheesy, and I say this a lot. I say it on social media as well, but I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world sometimes. Whatever I'm doing with a client, and it's not always HA, a lot of the time it's other hormonal issues or some other things too, but it is it's absolutely amazing to have made an impact on someone, that it's forever. It's not just for it's not for kicks, it's forever. This person they have a knowledge, they have a power, they know how they work, they know what nutrients they need. It's amazing. Yeah, I feel really lucky.
Oh, that's so nice. I always say that one of my big things is I want everyone, I'd love everyone to wake up every single day and feel like amazing, and they're waking up and doing the work that they absolutely love every day. So it's so nice to chat to someone that is like just loving their work. So where can everyone find you if they want to work with you, they want to follow you, see your content, that kind of thing? Where can everyone find you?
Thank you. Well, in the interest of, I guess, your audience, Instagram, I'm doing more on there. We were chatting about this before we started recording, but it's been a labour of love. I've only been on there this year, and it's, you know, I'm doing more on there, so you can certainly find me on Instagram.
You've only done it this year. You've done well.
Thank you. It's coming. I do put a lot of content on there because I'm not one of these, I don't withhold info. I'm like, get the value out there because people need it, right? So there's lots of information on there. I'm on LinkedIn as well, so I do a lot of my professional kind of corporate stuff on LinkedIn, and my website, if you want to contact me, drop in, read a bit more about what I do, and my blogs, I write a lot of blogs, is hollydan.co.uk, so you can find me there too.
Yeah, I'm just looking through your Instagram. It's even like got bits about like whether coffee's always a big one I'm constantly floating between yes and no with it. And like nutrients for stress, balancing hormones. There's so much information even about like estrogen, that kind of thing on your Instagram. So yeah, please do go and check out Holly, because I'm sure there will be plenty to get you into. But thank you so much, Holly. I've absolutely loved this, and hopefully maybe in a few months or something we can do like a Q&A or something, because I'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, I'd love to, absolutely love to, Chloe. Thank you so much for having me.